Hey guys, welcome back. BDCKR here. We are back with our weekly Q&A videos. This is season 12, episode 2, the season of question mark.
Or maybe just the season of favorite games or favorite teams, as we get into, because the last week we did Flashpoint Batman.
Yeah.
This week is the Justice League team. Mm-hmm. And there's a bunch of iterations of it, and the one I'm choosing to highlight this week is the Justice League team with Man of Steel Superman, New 52 Wonder Woman, and Flashpoint Batman. Mm-hmm. Because, well, all right, we know why New 52 Wonder Woman is good. That's why she is the anchor of basically any Justice League team.
Yeah.
Flashpoint Batman is required because you need somebody with high damage output to fight those teams where they have, I guess, not so much immunity, but some protection against specials. So I'm thinking of Wally West. I'm thinking of Dawn of Justice Batman. I'm thinking of anybody who can give us a hassle where, if they get really lucky, maybe with Mother Box or Riddler's Cane, where they would give us a lot of trouble and we're not doing anything with their specials.
Yeah.
Or I guess even a Blackest Night Flash team, where if our specials generate any kind of damage over time, which this team does, then we're going to really struggle. And Man of Steel Superman is there. That's the flexible part, and it's my favorite lately, only because what you can do is it's leveraging New 52 Wonder Woman's ability to do specials and then doing even extra specials that for free, because we get the power back with Man of Steel Superman. Mm-hmm. It is pretty fun.
Yeah.
So there's not a lot to say. We've done this team a bunch before. You can look through our lists. I mean, we've organized most of our lists, our playlists, to have the teams so you can find them. But also, if you just look up BDCKR and look up the specific team members you want, I think we've tagged them properly so that they should show up for you.
Yeah.
Yeah.
In terms of other stuff, we sometimes talk about stuff we're playing or watching. We're watching The Boys, the most recent season.
Oh, we're caught up.
Yeah, still a good show. Unsurprisingly. It's kind of hard to know, because I know we talked very effusively, very positively about the first couple of seasons, and I'm still obviously really enjoying it, but it's hard to know. It's definitely not like as fresh as the first season was.
No.
And it's hard, but so it's hard to know how much of it is like what you already enjoyed and you're just continuing to watch it because it's just more of like a similar thing. But all I know is that I am enjoying myself with this season still in a similar way to the previous ones. I definitely don't think, if you enjoyed the previous seasons, and I think with the only caveat being like, you understand that it's a satire, right?
Okay, so this is interesting to me. When you say it's a lot more of the same, what was going through my head was, sure, it is, actually, but what's changed is the discussion around it, because it feels like I'm hearing a lot more people in social media complaining that it is, that sort of catch-all conservative insult. It's too woke.
Yeah, it's an interesting thing, right? Because I'm not seeing a lot of the primary discussion. I'm seeing people talking about it and posting screenshots and stuff, right? Like, you're not seeing the original tweets or whatever.
No.
So I guess the thing that's curious to me, that's strange to me, is that they've gotten this deep in before they figured it out. Sure. And I don't know exactly how many people it is, but it's weird. Like, one of the things that I've seen, this is going to be super mild spoilers, just of like a character that they introduce. Yeah. But with Sister Sage, right? Where they're like, oh, they're trying to make this like the world's smartest woman, like a black woman, and that's for like DEI. And it seems like they're missing the point that she's bad. Like, that she sucks, actually. Yeah. And in the same way that like everybody pretty much in Vought Towers is meant to suck in one way or another, right?
Right.
She's a little bit nuanced, but like, if anything, I think it's an interesting direction that they've gone into it, where they've made somebody the smartest person in the world and also just made them kind of like a terrible person also.
Right.
Because you very easily could make a character that's supposed to be really intelligent, and then if her role was to be in the show and be a master manipulator and being like, well, I'm the smart person, so I know everything, and I can tell you objectively, Homelander, that you're a right-wing, asshole, right? That would be kind of, to me, like, a potentially less interesting choice.
Right.
But also what you would imagine to be the logical choice if you were trying to be that, like, woke sort of, right? The thing that they're complaining that the show is, if they had, I'm verifiably the smartest person ever, and I can tell you that your politics are bad. That would be the kind of, like, boring character choice that, or it wouldn't even necessarily be boring. I think you'd have to see what they do with it, but that's kind of would be I think they would have something actual to complain about and hold on to if that was the angle that they were taking it from, but at least for their own internal logic, right?
But the show hasn't changed that much. I mean, the characters, okay, so there are new characters, but it feels like the kind of things that they're complaining about are things that they've been doing since the very beginning.
Yeah.
And not so subtly either.
No, not at all.
I mean, is it possible that people saw the show and thought that the Nazis were the good guys?
I just wonder. Nobody thought that, but I wonder if there was a level of like ability to kind of wave it away because it had so much of what people liked, which is like, you know, if it's violent and silly and kind of over the top, that like I'm trying to think, superheroes being evil I think is maybe an easier pill for some people to swallow, and sort of corporations are evil in this big nebulous way. And I'm wondering if the newer seasons, in the way that they've gotten at least slightly more sort of politically explicit. I know there was in one of the earlier seasons. Is it because there's
somebody running for president and vice president, or are they elect? Did they win?
I don't know. Because, like, you know, in one of the earlier seasons, I remember that scene. Again, this is spoilers, but this is, like, not recent season spoilers, for a couple seasons back, like 1 or 2 maybe, where they had that whole, like, radicalization thing, where they showed, like, one of those, like, dudes, like, watching a bunch of, like, the shows, looking at, like, danger, and then, like, going out and, like, trying to, like, kill somebody in a convenience store, right? So there are these little things that I guess maybe don't necessarily read super strongly as right-wing. Not that it's not relatively obvious, but that I think you can sort of push down and ignore if you just like sort of some parts of the show.
Yeah.
Right? And so it's the thing is, it's not really worth it to me to go back and, like, analyze it and see maybe where they're having people figure out what the show is about the deeper they get into it. But it surprises me that there are new people to go, oh, this is bad. Because, like, you know, in fairness to people, there's probably a certain number of more right-wing conservative people who were happy for the Nazis to be the villain, right? And then the more it seems like they're pointing the finger at, like, conservatives or Republicans or whatever more broadly, or maybe like a sort of Trump stand-in figure, that they're not receptive to that, right? Because, you know, people all have their different political lines, but it is a little bit interesting to me that sort of, even if you could say, well, yeah, it's fine for corporations to be bad, it's fine for superheroes to be bad people, it's fine for Nazis to be bad people, that it wasn't clear what the overall stance of the show was, generally, right? That you couldn't extrapolate the way that the show is handling topics to potentially what you believed.
So you mentioned interesting, and actually I think maybe more, because that feels like it's been sort of, you know, beaten to death a little bit already. What's interesting to me is the storytelling. So each time I see a new show that has source material, and even when it deviates, because I think you mentioned, maybe not, you know, in the podcast.
It wasn't separately.
It was about how, because I never read the original.
Yeah, and I haven't either.
But you were saying something about how it's deviated from the original comic.
Yeah,
book.
and the original, one of the things was, I guess this is spoilers for the comic, but from what I've heard, they're not that good, so, you know, who cares? That Black Noir was a clone of Homelander, and one of the storytelling beats was that he was like a kind of like evil clone figure, where he had even less of sort of what made Homelander like quote unquote human, right? Because that is a big sort of plot point in the show, is these characters' relative humanity and the relationship to their humanity, and so he would like wear his suit and do stuff under the Homelander name, right? So that he was able to sort of slip under the radar as Black Noir, but also when needed assume sort of the mantle of Homelander. Yeah.
So to me, The Boys is just another example of when you've got source material, even if you deviate from it, even if you make different choices, the fact that there's that skeleton, there's that sort of underlying structure that you can work with, your potential for coming out with something really good is so much better. I'm watching Shogun now on Disney.
I've heard a lot of good things.
So good. I'm not finished it yet. Boys was great. The first few seasons of Game of Thrones, when there were actually books that they were following, also brilliant. People don't complain that they fell apart before that. They complain that at the point where they're sort of deviating from George R. R. Martin, because, I mean, even if they got plot points, but they didn't have books. So really enjoyed Three Body Problem.
Yeah, it's true. You have a much richer sort of base to draw from if it's something else first, and you can still screw it up and you can still mess up and make something bad.
Yeah.
But I think at the very least, you kind of have that extra level of not quality assurance, but that thing released and it was successful enough to get in front of somebody who liked it and who optioned it and then made it into something, right?
Yeah.
So at the very least, you just have that sort of filter for quality. And then if you do a good job adapting it, you can figure out what works and hopefully capture the sort of vibe of it. Another show that was an adaptation that you really like was The Man in the High Castle, right?
Yes. I think, and in some ways I feel like it was better than the book. I read the book, struggled with it, and I think it's a me problem more than the book problem.
Yeah.
But I want to tie this back to Injustice. Part of me thinks, we've talked about it. We've got some questions this week about, are they shutting the servers down? And there's a really strong community. There's a lot of sort of loyalty. There's a hardcore group of players. I mean, I count us among them. Mm-hmm. And part of me wonders if it's partly that too. I mean, just any generic game with superheroes with powers and fighting wouldn't have nearly the longevity that Injustice has.
Yeah.
And it draws from, maybe not as directly, but very rich source material.
Yeah. And I think with a game like Injustice, one of the advantages too is not just that there's source material, but source material that is known to the people coming into the game, which lets you skip some of that extra legwork of having to establish characters that are compelling. You don't need to have like a million cutscenes telling you about these people and why you should care about them. You just need to, drop Catgirl in it and then they go, oh,
yeah,
Catwoman. I've always the girl and woman thing. It would be nicer. That's a relatively I think bad mistake to make because they do tend to call characters girl, where the man counterpart gets to be whatever man, right? And then it's
there's not a lot of boys, are there?
Yeah, no
superheroes. There's Wonder Boy.
And most of them are like sidekicks, right? So it sort of puts the girls at like a naming disadvantage slightly off the bat. So it's too bad that I defaulted to Catgirl instead of Catwoman. But anyways, yeah.
I think there might have been an Archie comic character that was Catgirl. When Archie had a line of sort of comic book characters that were riffs on the mainstream stuff.
Well,
I wonder if you're actually referring to a real character.
There's so many comic book characters that I wouldn't be entirely surprised, but anyways, do we want to get into the first question?
Yeah.
So first comment of the week comes from IGotBan9875, and they say, "Hello, my comment was hidden for some reason. I would like to get hired to do your thumbnails for 2 Valorium an hour." I think that's good.
Well, let's ignore the problem that it's not an hourly job. It's like a piece job, right? So you need to set a price for how much it costs to do the thumbnail.
That's true if you're really, really slow at thumbnail. Well, also, tongue in cheek, obviously, because Valorium an hour is not that valuable. But this is interesting, and because they could just be poking fun at the fact that our thumbnails are very utilitarian and objectively speaking not very good.
They're aggressively plain. I can say that because the aggression part is comes through on intent.
Yeah.
And my intent in making those thumbnails is it needs to do the job. It needs to be easy to do, and I need to not have to do much thinking about them except when I happen to come up with a good joke. Yeah.
So I guess if this is a real offer, I got banned. What we'll say is that open offer to anybody if they want to send to bdckr@hotmail.com a thumbnail. 2 sort of options, right? One would be for a video that is already up. If we like it, we would swap the thumbnail out for it. And by if we like it, I mean, I think if somebody went through the effort of making it for us, as long as it didn't look really terrible or had anything like offensive on it, I think there's a decent chance. We'd at least strongly consider it, right?
Yeah.
We would do that,
but no compensation.
Well, it would be a shout out. We'd thank you for it. But and the other option would be if you want it to be for a video that doesn't exist. I mean, you kind of already know the format of our weekly Q&A thumbnails. If you've looked at them, all you'd need is a space for text. If you want to do one and there's enough space to put some text on relatively easily, and we like the look of it, I would consider that. So that's our email is bdckr@hotmail.com. And you can shoot one to us if that's a real offer. And if it's just that our thumbnails are bad, then unfortunately that's not changing.
I mean, I do really want to be clear because I feel like that there's at least the potential pitfall that people are going to send it in and then expect some of our ad revenue.
Yeah, no, it would just be for a little thank you. The ad revenue is really not that impressive.
Yeah.
If somebody does a really gorgeous, luxurious thumbnail, I would sign into your account and earn you a little bit of Valorium alloy, maybe.
Yeah.
But that's a standing offer. I doubt anybody will send something in, but if you wanted. Okay, our next comment of the week comes from Captain Hayes 1374. They say, it's interesting to me that you guys don't give much value to Blackest Night Batman's unblockable chance. Well, I can't speak for Android, at least on iOS, the AI has the ability to randomly ignore any hit stun and block a special on frame 1. It's annoying to me due to its unpredictability, so I personally like free unblockable chance if the opportunity cost is low, which I would argue is the case for Blackest Night team.
I mean, I guess yes and no. Sometimes I feel like our perspective gets a little bit skewed by the teams that we're facing more so than the teams that we play.
Yeah.
And so this is one of those things where an unblockable chance is way more effective on the AI than it is on, a player's team. Yeah. And it really comes down to that the AI completes basic combos. So the flip side also is that, you might get blocked on the frame 1, but most of the time you can figure out a way to time things properly, whether it's in the middle of the AI's basic combo.
Yeah. But it sounds like this person is saying that they're ignoring like hit stun and like blocking when it seems like they shouldn't. Like there's a certain chance of them just blocking regardless of whatever else is happening.
Yeah,
I don't know.
But I'm saying, so when they block a special on frame 1, they're just responding too quickly to it, right? So they're talking about not being able to land on block specials.
Yeah, but they're talking about like ignoring hit stun, which might mean like, whatever. It's hard to tell if they mean during an animation.
But if we're just talking specifically about that part first, though, where you're having trouble. See, it's magnified how good the unblockable is on the opponent because on the AI, because the AI usually is not trying to land a special unblocked. There are times where they're going to launch a special and times where they're not. Mm-hmm. And so if it's going to happen without an unblockable chance, it's so much easier to block the AI. So it feels much more effective in both ways, in basic attacks and in specials. And I feel like we have the ability to both plan to hit, to plan to aim a special so that it's unblocked, but also to be able to judge where, I don't care anymore because the opponent doesn't have enough health. I'm just going to let loose with the special because I'm still going to knock them out anyways.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so I guess it would depend slightly on what Captain Hayes means by hit stun here, right? Whether or not there's something with iOS or just their version, like maybe even just the speed at which their phone runs, right? That for some reason makes it so that where they would normally be able to hit an unblockable special, they're not, right?
Yeah,
it's hard to know exactly what experience they're referring to. If they're talking about like doing a couple of hits in a combo and then engaging a special or something like that.
Yeah, so that when you're hitting them with a combo, I guess people are talking about chaining. To me, it's the part where, to me, a hit stun is that moment where after they've been hit, they can't do anything, even though they're not literally stunned.
Yeah. And
I think that's sort of fair that sometimes it happens, but I think it's really the animation that's the issue because if you just, in my mind, if it's going to happen, I just assume it is. And I've accounted for that in play. I know that if I try to chain certain specials after combo, I know it doesn't.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. So it's an interesting thing, I guess. If you do have that trouble and it is causing you more difficulty in fights, like that consistency is helpful and it is nice. But that is, I think, the difference between, different players and playstyles, right? What you're describing is an issue with consistency that we, for whatever reason, don't have the same way or doesn't bother us the same way.
I will acknowledge that the unblockable value on a Blackest Night team with Blackest Night Batman is better than most because it's not just basics, it's also specials.
Yeah.
So that with the specials that are multi-hit, then you have a chance of landing some of them, if not all of them. Again, the problem is, when you talk about some of them, it'll depend on how useful the specials are, how much it's front-loaded for damage versus back-end loaded. Mm-hmm. I don't know. I don't get enough value out of it, and when you need the Blackest Night Batman team to have more Blackest Night characters to increase the unblockable chance, then I'm less happy with it because I like having Hawkgirl on the team. Mm-hmm. And if having Hawkgirl on the team means that you're passive is less, then that passive better be good enough with her on it to make it worthwhile.
Fair enough. Yeah, so there we go. Our next comment comes from user and then some letters and numbers. I'm assuming these are just like automatically assigned and aren't important.
It feels like not. I feel like that when YouTube is automatically assigned, they assign like 4 numbers at the end of it.
Then let me read it for you. It's DD8GIFFEZ.
GI1FF3Z.
GI1, sorry, FF3Z. Yeah.
So is it Fez? If Fez, D date, G if Fez. Giffes.
I don't know.
Okay.
Either way, they say, do you think that because they are releasing all the missing challenge characters, because they are planning to shut down the servers after the cycle is done? So this is an interesting question, right? It is possible. We don't have any more information than anybody else. So everything we say after here is just total speculation on our part, right? But I would say it's possible, but it doesn't feel that likely to me.
I think it's, again, I don't know if we have to say the qualification that we're not officially affiliated with them, right? Because we say it a lot and it's absolutely true. But it'd be one thing if they were just releasing all the characters. It'd be another thing if they were releasing all the packs at once. It'd be another thing if there weren't so many characters and they weren't taking their time.
Yeah.
So in order to release all the missing challenge characters, we're talking another 40 weeks, maybe somewhere around there. We're talking the better part of a year, and it feels like that Warner Brothers is maybe not planning that far ahead, that they're thinking that, in about another 40 weeks, we would like to, before they started it, in another year, we would like to get rid of or, shut down the servers for Injustice.
Yeah.
And so let's start rolling out the challenge characters every other week so that it can happen in a year. And you are the person who's assigned to rolling that out and adjusting the challenge sequence. What's the word I'm looking for? The challenge pattern so that it happens.
Because really, rolling them out like that, what you're imagining, right, in this scenario is that they're doing something nice for us. Right.
Yeah.
And then they're going to shut down multiplayer. So they'll say, here's your chance to get everything. And then after that, whatever, play with what you've got.
Right.
And to me, the reason why that doesn't make a ton of sense is because I think a lot of the value of having all of these characters is being able to take them into multiplayer and play with them.
Yeah.
And it's not clear to me sort of that would provide a significant amount of extra value to people before just shutting stuff down. Right? They kind of set that precedent of years of not having access to them, and maybe people were disappointed or whatever, right? And people are going to be disappointed regardless when the server shut down, right? Whoever's playing and still likes the servers, and playing like multiplayer modes, right?
Right.
There's not nearly as much replay value in the offline modes, just because once you've beaten everything, there's not as much of a motivation to grind for stuff, right? Part of the reason why better stuff matters so much is specifically because in multiplayer mode, you'll get more battle points, you'll fight new and interesting fights, you'll get more defensive wins, right? If you can beat everything already with the stuff you have.
Well, I will say that the only reason I used offline mode for a while was really to level up characters, because then I had more control over who I was facing, more control over winning. So, I mean, when you talk about defensive wins, that really only matters in the context of multiplayer anyways.
Yeah.
So there probably, once you get far enough, I think you're right, there probably isn't enough value in doing offline play for its own sake.
Yeah.
As opposed to doing it with the specific goal of, okay, so I'm grinding not for, well, maybe for credits and bonus battle sakes, but other than that, not for anything else, not for good stuff, but just basically to level up some bronzes and silvers.
Yeah. Really, my guess is that the game will shut down at some point when it is no longer worth it financially, and that'll mean either when the server costs are outstripping the money they're getting from in-app purchases or ad views, or alternatively, if there is some sort of like Google Play Store or iOS update that requires them to make changes to the game.
Yeah.
Because I know they do that every once in a while, and sometimes
they
it's
keep me
literally
up with
just
it.
like recertification or whatever. Yeah.
Yeah.
So there might be a point where having any dev hours dedicated to that no longer makes sense.
Yeah.
For how little money it's bringing in.
So it feels like it's at least 40 something weeks away, which is to me like far enough away that that's beyond what their plan is for the game.
It's not like they're thinking about like winding things down or it doesn't seem to me like that makes that much sense.
Yeah, but what do we know?
Yeah. So we don't. It's possible that, after this they're going to just retire the challenge mode, right? Maybe there's lots of things that it could be, but in my opinion it doesn't seem like it's going to be anything. It just seems like they had somebody who put a little bit of time and effort into this for whatever reason. But it doesn't seem to indicate anything larger to me other than the fact that there are still occasionally sometimes people doing some stuff on the back end, which we kind of already knew from, when Google Play changes their requirements.
Right.
But this is ever so slightly more than that because this is something that doesn't necessarily, it's not required of them, right? They don't need to do it to continue being an app that you can download.
Right.
So, yeah.
Right.
There we go. Our next comment comes from Andrew Wabe, 7822. And they say, my question is about gears. If you were a dev for Injustice, are there any gears you would want to remove or even any gear ideas you'd like to add to the game? And this is an interesting question. In terms of like to remove, I'm not sure, right? I think I like everything that we've got. It would be kind of interesting if you could take out stuff to the point where, for example, like Special Specialist was no longer such a dominant playstyle. I think I like and am used to like Tantu Totem and Master's Death Card, but I wonder on some level if the game would not have more possibility space and some more sort of engaging gameplay if you didn't have those gears.
Well, I mean, that's an easy fix. I guess, if you're talking about, I feel like this is the same argument in a specific area of basically, do we nerf or is anything worth nerfing, basically? Mm-hmm. And the other part is potentially ideas, but in the sort of shadows is, do we need more power creep?
Yeah.
And I think it's easy to do that by having more gears or having any gears that will, besides Claw of Horus, it will disable the opponent's gears.
Yeah.
And I've said this lots of times over the past, is it 10 years now? Or maybe not 10 years, however long gears have been around. I mean, there's 3 sort of basic ideas for gears that I would love to see.
Yeah.
One is you could mirror the opponent's gear.
Mm.
And I think if you did that, it would change the complexion of what you might want to do. Right? So what you've got are a lot of teams with Tantu Totem.
Yeah.
If you could have the opponent have Tantu Totem, have a gear that would imitate that, maybe it's less appealing.
Mm-hmm.
If you could have, what I would love to see would be a gear that would cancel the opponent's passive.
That would be pretty cool. Yeah.
It only has to be a limited period of time, but think about how much difference that would make if you tagged in, you canceled out Injustice 2 Superman Shield, and took away his promotion boosts.
Yeah.
For 8 seconds.
Make him a lot weaker.
Sure. And the other thing that would be like so fruitful for gears is either make a gear that would duplicate the opponent's passive, or make one gear for every single character in the game that would be a duplicate of that character's passive that somebody else could wear.
That would be pretty cool.
That would be so much content.
Yeah.
Part of me feels like,
that you could probably add relatively reasonably.
Sure. And when you think about all the different skins of characters that we've had that are still considered new characters and how excited people were getting about them, I mean, there were people complaining. Everybody complains. Yeah. Everybody can find something to complain about. I mean, if they knew where we would end up for years of no updates and no character, and new characters and no new content, I think they would recognize that and be grateful that if we could have something like that. Mm-hmm. Can you imagine?
You know what I actually think would be really cool? Now that you've mentioned that, you've given me an idea. Would be a gear that had maybe 1 or 2 effects, but one of its effects was, so it would be less effects than a normal gear, in my imagination. But what it would be, for example, like Mantle of Red Son, and that gear would make whoever was wearing it count as that universe's character. So it would let you sort of build your own custom teams, where you could have somebody be like an honorary member. I think that would be interesting, because then you could have two members of a specific universe team, right? Like Mantle of Blackest Night or whatever, and then they would count as a Blackest Night character.
The most powerful gear would be Flashpoint.
Yeah.
And the most powerful character would become Hawkgirl. If you did that, she would not be S tier. She would be God tier.
Yeah. But I think what would be kind of funny about that too is you could have a situation which you have, for example, like one Red Son character, one Blackest Night character, and then the third character with the Red Son and Blackest Night gear, so that you could like buff one person with two other things. Like it would be an interesting risk reward thing.
Right.
And then in my imagination, the other ability, or one of the other abilities would be some sort of mild buff for the characters of that universe. So the gear would be, you count as a Blackest Night character, all Blackest Night characters get X, right? And it could be pretty marginal still.
Yeah.
But I think that would be...
You wouldn't even need it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But I think it would be, because there aren't like one ability gears. I think you would do that, it would be like something small, like a basic damage boost or whatever, right?
Yeah.
And I think that would be really cool and interesting and open up the possibility space a lot.
Actually, you know what I would like? I would like one ability gears.
Yeah?
I think
like
that
really
would be...
big ones?
Yeah, I mean, there's some abilities that are just so powerful that we've already seen that I think that you could have, like, if there's one gear that its only ability was boosted stun damage.
Yeah.
Come on. Tantu Totem, I mean, it's got, what, 3 or 4 abilities? Who cares about the other ones? It's always been the power generation, right?
Yeah, it's true. If they picked the right one, it would be interesting to see slightly more powerful abilities, but like just the one that you really care about would be kind of cool.
Yeah.
And it wouldn't require them to do that much more work. I think another thing that would be interesting that would swap up the meta a little bit is just like one gear, 2 at the very maximum, that would nerf specials. So for example, it wouldn't even need to be massive. It would just be like a % chance of like taking like 90% less damage from a special. That would make it so that you could run into people where like Tantu Totem or Master's Death Cart doesn't make sense to pop your specials against them.
So, I mean, we have that, but a much lower percentage as a passive. So if you could just have a gear that would imitate the passive of Wally West or Down Justice Batman, I mean, what you're talking about is a higher, even better than their passives.
Yeah.
So I would take that. I would take something that was just their passives.
I think, something that was their passives, the point is, it wouldn't need to be that exactly, but something that would make it so that in certain teams, that just spamming specials with Tantu Totem is less viable, right? Yeah. That you could run into a situation where you would hit somebody and you would get your specials eaten and you'd get very little out of it.
Or
right?
you take some damage.
Yeah.
Right? I mean, that's what Wally West and Down Justice Batman do.
But just enough to the point where it would make you think twice. I think that would be something that I would find relatively compelling.
Yeah.
Yeah. Unfortunately, we are not developers for the video game Injustice.
That's true.
And maybe if we put all those things in, they would be terribly balanced and nobody would like them. But I'd like to think that people would just take what they could get at this point anyways.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think that is a good place to end the video off for this week. So to finish up, we'd like to give a huge thank you to all of our lovely patrons on Patreon. Should I read it or should you?
You go ahead.
Okay. So that's Michael Devries, Irvin Ruiz, Hoshi127, Nora Klimek, and Paolo-Cesar-Pablo-Juan supporting us on the credited level, as well as 5x5 supporting us on the gratitude level. Thank you so much for your support, and thanks so much to all of you for watching and supporting us however you do. We'll see you next time. Komoda!